Hello, parents, and welcome. Today we will have a pre-recorded virtual coffee hour, and our topic for today is science and the value of experimentation, and that is our July topic for our virtual coffee hours. Thank everyone for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy this presentation. So before I begin, I would like to give you a bit of a background about how science applies to the Montessori pedagogy. So Maria Montessori, Dr. Montessori, was a scientist at the deepest levels of her heart. She was a science-based learner. She had a science-based education, and she received a science-based master's and doctorate degree. Maria Montessori has taken science to a whole new level when it comes to applying scientific concepts and the value of experimentation with our young students in the classroom. And this is from children, toddlers, all the way up to teenagers. And so science is a huge part of the Montessori pedagogy. It is the scientific basis for the Montessori philosophy, where experimentation and discovery and manipulation of objects and testing the senses in terms of temperature or weight or change, color mixing, sounds, and nature, botany, gardening, agriculture, all of that has been included in the Montessori curriculum, especially when it comes to our older students that are primary aged, which is 3 to 5 and up all the way through elementary and sometimes high school. For infants and toddlers and preschool students in a mixed age environment, science has a different approach. So in a lot of ways, our students have experienced science by utilizing baking materials to create foods and goods, by mixing batter and adding ingredients and experimenting with how those ingredients move and how we all work together to make that a positive accent to our lives. Okay, so science is very important to our young children. We enjoy learning science with our young children. We utilize that by examining bugs outside in nature, talking about trees, root systems, flowers, insects, animals, human life moving throughout the environment and outdoors, up and down the street, the mechanics of vehicles, the sounds of aeronautic craft in the sky, the change of weather. So in the Montessori environment, we can use science to our advantage to help to teach our children many incredible skills. So we'll start with a Montessori quote, and the quote starts like this: "What is a scientist?" We give the name scientist to the type of man or woman who has felt experiments to be a means to guiding him or her to search out the deep truth of life, to lift a veil from its fascinating secrets, and who, in this pursuit, has felt arising within him or her a love for mysteries of nature, so passionate as to annihilate the thought of himself. So when we understand how much is happening around us and how deeply we are connected to all of those things, we lose ourselves and we lose our sense of self-importance and we lose our sense of self-identity when we are experimenting with scientific concepts. Because being a part of nature, you don't have to be any particular kind of person. You don't have to behave a certain way. You don't have to talk a certain way. You don't have to live a certain way. Being natural and being in nature means that you are connected to everything that is around you. That who you are as an individual becomes part of that grand schema versus how the schema is oriented. So let's say, for example, a child is playing on the playground. Yes, the playground is there for the child, right? But the child is there to utilize the playground. and becomes a part of that playground. And when the child is utilizing all of the playground equipment and enjoying their time, they aren't thinking about who they are or what they can do for others or what they should be doing. As long as they're being safe and they're enjoying themselves, the playground is there for them to discover who they are as they forget about what they should be, right? Discovery of the self means, in a way, taking yourself away from all of the traditional thoughts and processes that make you who you are in the eyes of others. But when we immerse ourselves in nature, we are not judged by nature. We are not redirected by nature unless there's severe weather. We are not discouraged by nature. We have the ability to encourage wonderful natural concepts within the life of our children, and utilizing science and trying to understand what a scientist actually is part of the work that we do. All right, so Montessori Science. Children are naturally curious, and they have a tremendous ability to observe even the smallest of details. The Montessori Science curriculum aims to give children the opportunity to learn about the world around them, and it encourages them to use all of their senses when exploring. Similar to the rest of the Montessori curriculum, the science area first piques children's interest with simple activities and gradually moves to more complex material. So some of the scientific works that we've introduced in the classroom are nature, object, discovery, and examination. We've had leaves and sour gum balls and rocks and sticks in the classroom where the children were able to use magnifying glasses to examine those nature materials further. We also have natural wooden materials, and we have natural plants in the classroom, which all lead to bringing nature indoors, which is a scientific connection to what we find outdoors. So our wooden tray is reminiscent of the wooden tree that we have out in the playground. And the wooden material is reminiscent of a piece of mulch or a branch that you would find playing outdoors. The leaves that you can use indoors for examining can be found outdoors on the actual tree or on the ground. We can watch them fall depending on what season it is. We can watch them change colors depending on what season it is. So there are a lot of complex principles that can be introduced with science and science materials indoors and outdoors, in the home and within the school. So the importance of science. Maria Montessori believed it was very important to give children the proper name for everything they interacted with on a daily basis. So that's why we use a lot of language in the classroom. If a child is learning language and they say a specific word, we will give them the correct phonetic sounding, and we will give them the correct pronunciation to the best of our personal ability to help the child to be able to more clearly explain and express what they are doing and what they are dealing with. And this includes any plants or animals that they might observe in their environment or in their home. We talk about home animals a lot. We talk about Georgie, the cat. We talk about Inca, the dog. We talk about lots of different animals. We see dogs walking up and down the street constantly. We see squirrels in the yard. We see birds running everywhere and flying everywhere and hopping. There are so many wonderful things to observe about nature. We've got groundhogs in the backyard. We see the baby groundhogs. We see the adult groundhogs. They scurry away anytime they know that there's a human presence. We have lots of insect activity in the garden, such as bumblebees and beetles and worms. So there's so much to learn about our natural environment indoors and outdoors. So to this end, Montessori created 3-part nomenclature cards for many science activities. So this is what you will find in the primary environment from students between 4 to 6 or 3 to 5 years old, depending on the program. And they use a lot of photo cards and identification cards and sequencing cards to be able to line up certain parts of a particular area of science. That could be botany, it could be parts of a flower, it could be agriculture, it could be, different aspects of a garden. You can talk about the solar system and planets, star systems, constellations, all of that builds and gains momentum and speed as the children grow and are able to learn and comprehend more information. So at the age of 3, our children become conscious. They go from an unconscious state, which is birth, to 3, which means they are absorbing everything. They have absorbed their experiences. They have absorbed their words. They have absorbed their experimentations. That transfers over into being able to linguistically express, to be able to physically express, to be able to note preferences, to make decisions, to recall information, and that allows scientific concepts to be carried forward from the unconscious state into the conscious state with such a wonder and awe and clarity and desire for experimentation and discovery. So that is how science benefits our young children, and the importance of it is critical for our young students to have the exposure to. So in addition to helping children identify and classify the natural world, these cards are a wonderful language activity that the Montessori environment uses from birth through high school. So nomenclature cards of many different areas of life and nature, lots of different systems are discussed, and all of that happens and takes place as the children grow older. So let's talk about animate versus inanimate. So we want to talk about living objects versus non-living objects. All are connected through some energetic strain, whether it is explained or unexplained. There is an essence that the students who are older in elementary and high school get to talk about in terms of kind of branching into the universe and, cosmic knowledge and, potential understanding of spirituality and the inner essence of the human being. All that takes place later, but we are building an understanding of those things early on. So one area of the natural world that the children explore is zoology. They begin by sorting different items into like categories such as living or non-living. And for our youngest students, this can be done by color, it can be done by nature object, it can be done by photo cards or object to photo card matching or photo to photo card matching. It can also be done with puzzles. So we do have a nice fish puzzle. We also have a nice bird puzzle that actually shows how the parts of the bird can be taken apart and put back together. You have the head, you have the wing, the body, you have the tail feather, and you have the feet. For our fish, you have the fish's face, you have the fish's fins at the top, the fish's body, a fish's fin on the side, a fish's fin at the back by the tail. So it really gives you a clear understanding of the anatomy of these different animals. And even though the puzzle itself is expressively inanimate, fish and birds are classically animate. Right? And this is something that our children can find in nature if they visit a creek or if they just look up at the trees and in the sky. And then we connect that back to the classroom. So once the children understand this concept, they begin to work their way through the animal classes as well as learn the characteristics of vertebrates and invertebrates. Montessori created many beautiful puzzles that complement our work with each animal class. These puzzles help the children learn to name the parts of each animal. So even though a lot of these materials are really required for the environment that is between 3.5 to 6 years old, we utilize some of these materials now in our classroom because we have a mixed age group. We have young children who might be working on their pencil grasp, who might really enjoy these small knobbed puzzles. We have older toddlers who can actually name bird, fish, that are building their language development. And we have our oldest students who can actually utilize the work, talk about the work, and conceptually understand an animate versus inanimate process of that particular animal, where it lives in nature, what it does, exploring habitats, and also talking about things that are living versus non-living. Miss Novella has an excellent collection of bugs that she has collected over the last 30 years, beautiful bugs that you really don't see on an everyday basis. But if she manages to catch one, and if she manages to store it and freeze it, she has been able to collect bugs and create her own collection of inanimate bugs who were once animate and they can be discussed in terms of their exoskeleton, their wings, their legs, whether they are a stinging insect or a non-stinging insect. Does this particular insect fly or does it crawl? Does this particular insect flutter with wings or does it buzz, right? There's so many comparatives that we can use when it comes to science. So we also have these puzzles introduced. We have a bird and we have the fish. I also have a frog puzzle. I also have a horse puzzle. I'm going to have to check the conditions of those because toddlers that I've worked with before in other environments may have been a little bit hard on those, and if there are any chips or cracks in those puzzles, I can't put them out. So some of them may need to be repurchased and reintroduced into the classroom, but I love utilizing these animal puzzles that break apart the parts of the animal, classification of an animal, such as a horse being an equine animal, such as a horse being a mammal, such as a horse being an animal that can be free in the wild or domesticated in a farm, and also what does the horse eat? Where could the horse live? What is the name of the horse's feet? What is the name of the horse's hair? We talk about hooves, we talk about the mane. So there are so many connective elements to animals in nature. So moving forward to botany, we can talk about plants. We love plants, right? We've got a beautiful garden growing out back. The children have been able to help Mr. Alex Restiano with Strawberry Moon Organics to help to situate our pumpkin patch that will be ready to go in the fall. I have already seen beautiful pumpkin blossoms, beautiful pumpkin vines, and beautiful pumpkins already growing that are the size of watermelons. So we're so excited to have the children be a part of that process to see the development and the growth of their own actual pumpkin patch. And we're so grateful to have parent support in that way as well. As well as for the other garden, I have utilized a lot of the materials in that garden for our students. The older girls have helped me to pick zucchinis, cucumbers, and tomatoes from our garden out back. We have utilized our spices and our lettuce from our arrow gardens that we have inside. We've incorporated all of those things into our lunches or into baked goods or into just talking to the children about what we see and what we smell and what colors do you see, and does mint smell yummy? And a lot of times when you pick it fresh from the ground and you give a child a mint leaf, they smell it, the first thing that they want to do is take a taste. And in a natural organic garden where we do not use any pesticides, that's absolutely acceptable. It is a nature-based experience. I remember enjoying honeysuckles as a child. I would go right up to the bushes and just pluck them off and eat them. I used to chew on sweetgrass as a little girl. I used to eat the very tiny, small, wild strawberries that you find in your yard. And as an adult, I discovered that all of the dandelion leaves that come with the little yellow flowers are great for detoxifying your liver. So when you extend a love for nature into a love for botany and agriculture and gardening and food preparation for the self and for others, then you can merge that into health and wellness and benefits of certain foods that you can then talk about as the children grow. So from there, after classifying plants or animals, the introductory materials lay a foundation for the children to learn the basic characteristics and needs of plants. So we talk about a lot about what our garden needs. Does our garden need sun? Yes. Does our garden need water? Yes. Does our garden need rest in the evening time? Yes. Does our garden enjoy, a cool breezy day? How does the garden feel when it's very, very hot outside? So there's so many different conversations that you can have around botany and habitats. So children learn the name of parts of plants. They learn trees. Sometimes they can identify trees by their leaves. And all of this is a connective curriculum that definitely bridges up towards kindergarten, where the kids can then talk about root systems and rhizomes and blades and crowns and tillers and stolons, or stems and pistils and petals and roots of a particular flower. We can talk about the root system and the trunk and the branches and the leaves for trees. So there's always a connection, always a system. A whole can be broken down into many parts. So that's what's exciting about science when it comes to Montessori. So, scientific concepts. In addition to using the materials that Maria Montessori developed for the classroom, children are introduced to scientific concepts such as buoyancy, magnetism, and life cycles. Throughout the year, the children explore and discuss different life cycles that coincide with the seasons. Each classroom has firsthand experience of the life cycle by watching a caterpillar's metamorphosis into a butterfly. Units on the solar system, dinosaurs, and the human body are also integral parts of the science curriculum. So children naturally love talking about the Earth. They love talking about Earth Day. They love talking about different planets and solar systems. I saw one of my friends come in today with a solar system shirt on. I saw another one of my friends come in today with a dinosaur shirt on. All of our students are able to identify different aspects of their human body and different body parts of others. You know, where is your friend's eyes? Where are your friend's ears? Where is your friend's nose? Things of that to be able to identify in the self and in other is a connective scientific expression. When we talk about the life cycle, that is an amazing process to observe and to talk about. You know, if we see caterpillars in the spring, and then we talk about how they started as little tiny eggs on a leaf. You use the hungry caterpillar as an addition to explaining the process of butterfly metamorphosis after the butterfly hatches from the egg. After the caterpillar hatches from the egg, then the caterpillar goes to look for lots of food, crunch, 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 munch, 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 lots of green leaves. And then the caterpillar gets very tired. Oh, and he needs to make a blanket. The caterpillar spins a cocoon, spins a cocoon. It goes around and around, and then the caterpillar goes to sleep. While inside of the cocoon, the caterpillar melts down into a special substance. And then when the caterpillar wakes up and comes out of the chrysalis or the cocoon, you have a butterfly. So The Hungry Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle explains that wonderfully in terms of the life cycle, but you can also view that in your own backyard. You can talk about where it could begin. You can go searching around, let's say you have a milkweed garden somewhere close or at a park. That's where butterflies enjoy breeding. So go find a milkweed patch, look under the leaves, see if you can find any caterpillar eggs, then also look even closer at the branches and see if you see any caterpillars moving around. And of course, because it's a butterfly bush, because butterflies are drawn to that particular plant, you'll see them fluttering around as well. That's 3 stages of a life cycle. And if you're super lucky, you'll also find a chrysalis taking place and getting ready. Some of the most beautiful chrysalises I have ever seen are monarch butterfly chrysalises. At my old school, we had an abundance of those butterflies, and we would see caterpillars everywhere, and they make the most beautiful mint green chrysalises with golden dots at the top. It is one of the most beautiful encasings I've ever seen. And the fact that that comes from our beautiful orange butterflies that we see every single year, that is a wonderful process to share with the students. So talking about bug life cycles, talking about nature cycles, talking about different aspects of science such as, oh wow, the leaf is floating on the water, that is buoyancy. Oh my goodness, our magnetic animals are sticking to the magnetic door, that's magnetism. And then life cycles when you talk about butterflies, or even if you talk about birds. So the birds will make a nest, and then the eggs are born into the nest, and then the eggs wait, and then the eggs hatch, and then the little baby birds come out, and the parent birds have to feed the baby birds little bugs and little worms, and then after time, those baby birds learn to spread their wings and fly. That's a direct correlation to the life that they are experiencing, not necessarily coming from an egg that they had to exit out of themselves, but they did start that way. They did have to be born, and they are very open to eating foods, and they love their parents, and they are learning how to spread their personal wings as human beings to fly. All right, so scientific values. The Montessori Science curriculum allows children to learn about the world around them while simultaneously engaging their sense of wonder. Science can be found everywhere from the most simple nature walk to an in depth discussion on how the earth came into existence. These conversations lead to valuable, teachable moments throughout the day. So there are so many ways that we can experience science. Even just being in an environment where scientific observation is possible is a great way for us to be able to complement each other and to complement the ability for us to explore science together. So, science in Montessori is known for introducing children to advanced topics in the early years, preparing them for a lifetime of discovery. And this means when we talk about geography and the ocean and the land and the air, when we talk about plant life and agriculture and gardening and botany, those are great ways to connect young children to science via the Montessori method. Also, different topics that we can talk about range from how the world began to the basic principles of astronomy, botany, chemistry, physics, and zoology. You can increase that as you move forward. You can definitely work to introduce these concepts to your young children in your home as well as we do at school. When you talk about astronomy, you're talking about the sun and the moon. You're talking about the solar system. You're talking about star constellations. You're talking about, did you hear the owl in the evening last night? Or do you see the moon in the sky? So there are so many ways that you can connect that. Botany, talking about plants. Do you remember when we picked the zucchini from the garden and we grated it down and we made zucchini bread? That's wonderful. When you talk about chemistry, mixing things. When you mix a watercolor into water, it dissolves and it spreads and it makes the water a homogeneous color. And also in terms of physics, how do things move? What's going to happen if I take this ball and roll it down a ramp? And then talking about zoology, parts of the animal habitats, where do they live, what do, what do they sound like? All of that is part of the Montessori approach. So also we have Montessori materials, a lot of them language cards and a lot of them natural objects from the world. So Montessori materials and lessons aren't meant to encourage a sense of wonder at the grandeur. At the grandeur of the universe, the simple beauty of the physical laws and the miracle of life. So you can look at the moth on the side and you can see a beautiful corrugated pattern. Where else can the children find this beautiful corrugated pattern in nature? You can find this corrugated pattern on tree bark. You can find this corrugated pattern on wood. You can also find this corrugated pattern on other animals that might have these kinds of patterns. So there are so many different things that we can talk about and we can share. So, using language cards and talking about different stages of life, discovering amoeba, talking about organisms, talking about insects, talking about fossilized items, talking about geography, talking about different parts of the world, talking about different animals and habitats, all of that is very important when it comes to helping our children to really learn the process of who they are and how they connect to everything else. So beginning with lessons in sorting objects intended for the youngest child and extending all the way to scientific discussions, discoveries, experimentation, and engagement, students can observe bugs with wonder and awe. They can pay attention to very close, pristine details. They can share those experiences with others. They can gain courage together. They can have conversations to explain what something is. The children can take field trips. They can visit nature parks or science labs or museums that will offer them specimens that they can look at, that they can examine. We actually have a set of acrylic specimens that I have been using for the last 10 years. I will be bringing those in to share with the students. Early on when I first started, probably around the fall of last year, I introduced some acrylic shapes that had like a butterfly and a chrysalis, and we had a seashell and I believe a little fish. And I also have other acrylic items that have, really big bugs, such as, big beetles and a scorpion and a huge wasp inside of an acrylic casing. And in that way, the children can know that the bug, if it looks ominous, is stuck inside of the acrylic, and that gives them the chance to thoroughly observe it without feeling fear that that bug or that insect or that object or that animal will bother them in any way. And that's the same when you go to a science lab or a specimen show where they can show you different things in jars that the children can examine and look at and really understand. That is a very interesting experience for our young children. Okay, so the Science Scope and Sequence was designed to be a comprehensive resource that provides essential information to Montessori guides for classrooms ranging in age from toddler through upper elementary. Okay, so our students across the board are receiving resources that help them to understand scientific concepts, scope and sequence, the order of things, the classification of things, the organization of things. So we know that aspects of the weather aren't necessarily connected to food, but when you combine the two, you have agriculture. How does the weather affect the food? And then we talk about the process of that moving forward. Well, where does the food come from? And then where does the food go? And then how does it get to the store? And then how does it get to our house? And then what do we do after that? So thinking about that process is so important for our young students. Science provides students with many opportunities to focus on the process and issues of science, the study of life, the laws and structures of the universe, and the work of scientists. So all of this takes place, some in the earlier ages, some in the middle ages, and some much later on. But gaining the basic concepts of the cycles of life, of the cosmic wonder, of the laws and structures of nature, and just the study of overall life in a very scientific way, in an observant way, in an experimental way, is the work of a scientist. And if that is what a scientist is, then our children are already that. And we're very proud of the work that they've done. Students learn to ask questions, follow a systematic process for observation, collect and analyze data, and conduct controlled experiments. So children are doing so much work every single day to ensure that they are gaining the best from their own personal experiences. They are collecting nature objects for a reason. They are navigating spaces for a reason. They are excited about discoveries for a reason. They are manipulating objects for a reason. They are challenging themselves to learn different skills for a reason. Thank you so much. I really appreciate having everyone here today to tune into this presentation. I hope that you have a chance to watch it and observe it. This is a wonderful alternative to having to meet in person. We had a tight schedule switch today and I wasn't able to meet in person. I hope I will be able to do that 2 months from now. If not, I believe that this is a great way for us to be able to record this information, collect this information, have me share this information with you without putting any strain on anyone's personal schedules, including ours, as we work to shift and change and work from moving from the school year into summer and then from the summer back into the school year. So thank you so much. If you have any questions or concerns after watching this video and you want to know more about how science is applied within the Montessori classroom at 4 Steps Creative Learning, please feel free to send us an email, send us a text, or give us a call. Thank you so much and have a great day.